Take them off the page, scratch them out. Don't need to know they're there. Sometimes we bring the children into the family. I have his and hers. Little Brady Bunch action going on. His, hers, and ours. So if you get remarried, we're going to draw another line for the new spouse. And then we're going to start adding the children. So on the line between you and the spouse that you had the children with, I know this is ugly, we have multiple spouses, I understand. But we're going to draw those kids because we want to know which spouse they're connected with. And I'm going to slow it down right here and give everybody a minute because I know you start getting a little, you can always flip over the paper, we just got to start over. You guys let me know when you're ready to keep going. We're going to add in.
Is it supposed to look like what you got up there?
Well, we've got, let's see here. What do we got here? We got my water bottle right in the middle of the picture. So, if this is you and your current spouse, and you have children, put them on the line between you. Okay. If you have children by a previous spouse, put them on the line with that previous spouse. If your parents are still in the picture, and part of your lives, put them on there. Same thing with your spouse. You probably, unless they're super involved in your lives, due to the children, probably don't need to know whether or not you're, but if it's important in your family tree, we're going to put those on there too. Now, I understand that some of these can be a lot more complex. We can have multiple spouses, we can have multiple children by different people, I get that. But it needs to be put to paper because when it comes down to our trust planning, we need to know who's gonna be responsible for what when we can't speak for ourselves. Is everybody kind of caught up there? Now, looking around this room, I know we might have a few people that have grandkids that's the concern to protect. So if it's grandchildren that we're looking to protect, we might be drilling down as well. So let's just watch how this one populates here. So our grandchildren and their spouse and their spouses, and then their children. Notice we're still adding on here. So now we've got the grandchildren, now have a spouse, and they have children. So now we're adding in multiple generations here. So if you're grandparents, it might look like this. Does this make sense, everybody? I know
So
you
we're
might not
adding the
understand yet what we're doing with it. Huh?
We're adding the grandchildren under our kids?
Under our kids.
Okay.
In between the line with whoever the dad is or the
Okay.
spouses, if they're in the picture. So, we said the first purpose was to understand the dynamics of the family tree. I can always be a better advisor to you if I understand your family dynamic. It's easy for me to paint my picture. I know what my family tree looks like. But I need to understand the dynamics that matter to your family. So we all have different families. But the second purpose is really to set the stage for that proper distribution of assets when that time comes. There's a third purpose. And that third purpose is that we want to make sure that we are properly distributing our wishes to where we want them to go. And making sure that our retirement lasts our entire life and that the end of our life is not more rocky or leaves a burden on our loved ones. So everybody have a family tree there of some kind? Everybody's looks different? You got homework. So now what you need to do is take that same family tree and put a little bit more information in there names, some dates of birth, and where they live. Make sure you write down who they are to you. My son, my daughter, my grandson, my granddaughter. So, let's talk about your current estate plan. I know a few of you raised your hands. How many? Again, you don't have to raise your hand. This is answer on the inside. How many of you have a will? A revocable, pardon? Oh, that's outside. We have people getting excited out there. You know, a last will and testament is probably the most common document that people think about preparing, but our will is simply our wishes. What do we want to happen with all of our assets, if we have minor children, with our children, when we pass away, or if we pass away when they're minors? The other thing that most people think of when they think of an asset plan is that trust. So how many of you have a revocable trust or some other trust of that nature? If you have either of these documents, I want you to ask yourself a few questions. Number one, when was it completed? When did you actually put it into action? And has there been any relationship changes since that completion? That could be marriages, divorces, births of children, adoption, deaths in the family. Anyone that is in that trust that shouldn't be there, or anyone that isn't in that trust that should, or that will. Have there been any asset changes? Did you buy a new car? Did you set up a new bank account? Did you change jobs and get a new 401k? Did you set up a 6-month CD at your bank? All of those asset changes should also contain verbiage to make sure that they're part of your estate plan. Have you changed residence states? I raised my kids right here in Northern California. Spent 35 years here, moved here as a kid myself. I've moved to 2 different states since California. Moved back to my home state of Alaska for a few years, and I ended up in Arizona. Couldn't be much further apart. Maybe I could have done Florida. And guess what? When I pulled my trust, not too terribly long ago, it shows I live right here in California. Hasn't been updated. Have you had any health changes? This is a really big one that a lot of times people don't think about, because when their health changes, sometimes things that we don't think about, like our life insurance or disability insurance, or maybe that long-term care insurance, might have to be locked in a different way than it was before. Might be eligible for a rollover or something that guarantees it for you if it's something that might end at some point. You've had a health change. But all of these things are part of your estate plan and should be reviewed at least on an annual basis, but definitely when these life events happen. So now that we've clarified some things some of these things, we want to understand what the real use is of what you've just created, of what that paper is that's right there in front of you. So I'm going to explain how a trust works, but we're going to explain it in reverse. You know, when I said in the beginning that oftentimes, you know, people come in and they want to wow you with all their knowledge, how smart they are, all of this terminology about how a trust works, and you leave out of there and you felt like Charlie Brown's teacher was talking to you the whole time. Anybody else? Over me. And you just didn't hear a thing. Anybody? So we're going to do this a different way, and I'm hoping you all participate. We're going to take a little journey. That way we can try to figure out how we want people to be placed in the roles in our trust before we fully understand what those roles mean. So the first thing I'm going to ask you guys to do is close your eyes. And I'm going to paint a picture. It's 8 o'clock tonight. You're on your way home. You get hit by a drunk driver. You find yourself in the hospital. And doctors don't think you're gonna make it. Keep your eyes closed. The doctors are asking. You can hear them, but you can't see them. You can't open your eyes. The doctors they want to know if you left any directions for them to continue treatment, and who did you appoint to make those final decisions? Is that person on your family tree? Open your eyes and look down. Now, usually people say, my spouse, the person that's closest to them. So I want you to close your eyes again. That's great, you're gonna write them down, that's that first person. Your spouse was in the accident with you. Or whoever that first person was, that person that's closest to you that you trust the most. Now who do you want to make those decisions for you? Are they on your family tree? If they are, write it down. Maybe it's a sibling. Maybe it's an adult child. Maybe it's a parent. Whoever you wrote down there is your power of attorney for healthcare. And you also should have a secondary power of attorney for healthcare. Whether you have a trust or not, this is an important document that you should have as part of your estate plan. Now, I need you to imagine you're going to make it. Doctor, you pulled through. Surgery was a success. But you're going to be in rehab for a while, and you're kind of in and out of consciousness, probably not making the best decisions for yourself. Who would you like to represent you for your finances? She's volunteering. And you know what? There's some truth to that. Actually, it brings something out. Because it doesn't have to be a family member, but usually you're going to find them on your family tree. There are professionals that can make these decisions for you based on your wishes.
What if you don't have money?
She volunteered. There are professional services that can help you out. You pay for them. That's the downside. It can be a close friend, someone you trust. I actually am the power of attorney on 3 different people's estates. I'm not suggesting you add. I have my hands full, and none of them are family. So, same exact thing as before. If your spouse was next to you, who would you want as secondary? And I want you to write that down. Now you know who your power of attorney is and your successor power of attorney. So do you think that maybe you might want one of those people as your trustee and successor trustee? Good chance. These are usually going to be the same people.
We're not sure. Okay, you're using some terminology that some of us can't write.
And that absolutely, we're gonna fill in that blank. So when we have a trust that is funded properly and it's designed properly, you're going to have a few different roles in that trust. And what that's going to do is it's going to prevent anything from occurring that you don't want to happen after your death or after your incapacitation. So we have a couple different roles of the revocable living trust. We have, and just ignore all these extra words. We can do this in all 50 states. In the state of California, I believe you have trustors and trustees. If I'm wrong, it's just a word swap. Don't stress. I haven't double checked to make sure that that hasn't changed. Some states have recently. So the trustor, that's you. If you're married, it's you and your spouse in most cases. The trustee is the person that you believe will do the best job at carrying out your wishes. They can't make changes to the trust ever. Their only job is to make sure that they follow the rules that you set forth in that document. So it doesn't matter what your health is like, you're always going to be that trustor. When your life is over, or if you become incapacitated and cannot make decisions for yourself, at that point the trust becomes irrevocable, meaning it cannot be changed. Nobody can make any changes to your wishes. And at that point, the trustee's major role is to manage your trust. That's it. They have the ability to make sure your wishes are fulfilled without requiring it to go through the court system. The trustee cannot change the rules, their job is to follow the rules. No matter what happens, you will always be that trustor, but you may not always be the trustee, yes.
Okay, now does that also, is that the same thing as if you have appointed someone as your power of attorney? Now can that person
The
make?
power of attorney may still require the court. So I want you to imagine, so your will is your wishes. When you form a trust and you're no longer able to sign something, so if you own a home, so if you own your home, if you wanted to sell your home, you would go down to a title company and you would sign about 1,002 documents in this state, because I do still have a real estate license here, unfortunately. That can be big. And sign your life away, and now you own your home, right? If you die, how does your home transfer to anyone else? Because you can't sign. They won't accept a transfer without your signature. So what happens is you get a trust and what's called a grant deed. And that grant deed allows your trustee, the person that you trusted to make sure that your wishes are fulfilled, to transfer that to the heirs that you wish to have it upon your incapacitation or death. All spelled out by you in that document. It's the ability to sign after you cannot. Does that help a little bit?
So I'm saying that's the same purpose of the power of attorney, isn't it? It's not?
A power of attorney can be within the trust, but the power of attorney does not have the power to actually allow them to make those signatures while you're capacitated, and it also requires a court to make those rulings. There's more documents that need to go with the power of attorney than just a plain old power of attorney. A power of attorney on its own can very easily still end up in the courts. So your successor trustees are the people who, if that person who is your trustee were not able to follow through, it would be another person in line that would take over.
So you're picking more than one people.
So you're gonna have a primary, but let me just give it as an example. So I have 3 kids that are married. My husband and I are together. If I go someplace, he's probably in the car with me 95% of the time, or I'm in the car with him. We don't almost ever go anywhere without each other. If we were to pass away in an accident, then I would need somebody else named for each one of those roles, even though I would want him to be my primary in case I went when he was not with me or something happened to me besides an accident. So yes, you would want a backup. Another example, I travel all the time with my son. Same thing. If my son was my successor trustee, I would want a backup. So that's what your successor trustees. We want to drill down at least twice. Couple of other things. Does anybody in here have minor children? Everybody's kids are grown? Anybody have kids that have minor children?
Yes, yes, yes.
If they don't have a will, complete with a trust, do you know who makes a decision as to what happens to those children should something happen to them? If your grandma or if you are grandma and something happens to one of those kids, or I mean, one of your kids, what happens to their minor children? We all think we're just gonna step up and swoop up our grandkids and save them, right? Guess who gets State of California in this case, if that's where they live, or whatever jurisdiction they live in.
So you
if
would have,
do this-
excuse me, so you
Yes,
would have
ma'am.
to fight for your own grandchildren?
Absolutely, you could, and you have to prove that you have a fit home for them to come home to. In some states, and this one is pretty tough, CPS will come and check out. So yes, absolutely, if you have grandchildren, there should be a will in place and some kind of document to make sure that those kids are not going to be ward of the state should something happen to that family. Or heaven forbid, I don't know if any of you have a family like mine, or maybe we got a crazy baby daddy out there who might just swoop up a kid that we didn't want to have either. Am I by myself here? I'm gonna get over this all weekend. I've got a kid in Alaska as far away as we could get that is fighting the ex. You know, it's real. If something happened to my daughter, would the state know that my grandson was supposed to come to me? Only if those documents are in place. So, if you decide to establish an estate plan, the things that need to be looked at, and here's where the rubber really meets the road, you guys. When we look at trusts, oftentimes, about 9 out of 10 of them are not properly funded. Those include the kind that are really, really fancy and designed by an attorney that cost you a lot of money. And why aren't they properly funded? Well, for a few reasons, but the most common reason is that life changes and attorneys charge a lot of money. So we'll help you get those real estate holdings into the trust so that it's not an improperly funded trust, just through coaching and helping you through the process. We're going to help you take a look at any kind of long-term plans or care plans that maybe you have for your family. Make sure that if something were to happen to you or your spouse, that you didn't have a giant cliff. Does anybody know what an income cliff is? Somebody in the household passes away, and now we have to sell the house because our spouse's retirement income went away. Our income got cut in half as a household. We want to take a look at what those income plans look like. You know that 40% of the people who retire today end up having to go back to work after they retire? Not because they want to, not because they're bored, because I'm sure that all of them that are standing there with bunions on their feet at Home Depot or Walmart saying, how may I help you? Or checking the receipt at the door at Sam's Club. We have one at our Sam's Club that looks like he shouldn't even be sitting on the stool that they've given him to sit on, checking the receipts at the door. I feel so bad for the guy. He's got to be pushing the century mark. But he's not there because he wants to be. He's there because he doesn't have the money to make ends meet with Social Security. He's not alone. 40% of Americans will do the exact same thing. Making sure that if you had a health condition, that there is accommodations inside that trust that are going to take care of you. And then that your assets that you currently have, all of those things that should have beneficiaries, that they're properly stated and up to date and current. So real estate holdings, this is a big one that a lot of people don't understand. When it comes to the trust document, if you have a not properly funded trust, I'm going to tell you a quick story. My aunt passed away in January of this year. She had a property that she owned in Alaska, in Anchorage, Alaska. That's where she lived. That was her primary residence. She had a beautiful trust that she spent about, I don't even know how much they spent. It was in 2013, so I want to say it was probably, based on what it looks like, I don't know, $3,000–4,000. And then the last time she spoke to the attorney about the trust was in 2013 when she spent the $3,000 or $4,000. So when she died this year, the house in Alaska was not in the trust, and her husband had passed away the previous year and had a home in Tacoma, Washington that was already in probate to go to her, also not in the trust. So now you get to do probate on 2 separate houses in 2 separate states, separate lawyers, separate probate fees. separate everything, and the only thing in that trust that she spent probably $3 to $4 grand on was one little stock certificate thing that, well, I don't even know what it was, for like $2,000, less than the value of the trust in the first place. Everything else goes to probate. One of them twice. So it's important that we have those deeds in there. So proper funding of the trust, we want to take a look at our retirement income. Again, I kind of jumped ahead earlier. I told you this is my first time through this presentation, so I talked a little bit about those cliffs. And then those income gaps. You know, where I got started, when I started in this financial arena, my primary objective was to help people who had pensions. State of California employees, mostly teachers. It wasn't because they had a ton of money. That's not why I decided that was my primary people to help. You know why it was? Because teachers are the least educated on what their retirement really looks like. And you know what else? Educators love to be educated. It's not that they didn't want to know, it's that nobody was there to teach them. So, what happens if you have something happen to you, if you're married, or something happens to your spouse? We'll talk briefly about that cliff. If we have that cliff happen to our spouse, will we be able to stay in the home? If you passed away, would your spouse be able to stay in that home? Let's take a look at that. Because you know what? There's ways to protect you and your family from those kind of things. And then the final thing when it comes to funding that trust is to review those beneficiaries on all of those other accounts. Things that we don't even often think about. Money markets, CDs, life insurance. Make sure they're up to date. I did a life insurance review. This was last week. I did a life insurance review, and the guy had a whole life policy, and his beneficiary was his mom, and his secondary beneficiary was his dad. They would be 102 and 105 today if they were still alive. So I'm going to ask you, would this process be appropriate for your family? So real quick, 3 reasons why families don't have the appropriate estate plan in place. First thing is they think it's going to cost too much. The second thing, they think it's going to be uncomfortable to talk about, especially if you're married. Who wants to talk to your spouse about what's going to happen when we die? That's not a fun conversation. And the third thing is they just don't know who they should talk to. Who can you trust anymore? About 2 quick statistics on estate planning. The number of Americans with a will is 24% of the population. Unfortunately, that's been in rapid decline. 33% of the population had them in 2022. Wouldn't you have thought that since COVID, did anybody like me feel like a lot of people died during that time, and a lot more people were acutely aware that we're all mortals, right? That we were all going to die someday, and yet it's gone down, not up. And I think that has a lot to do with the rising costs. People feel like they just can't afford it. And then of the people who responded, only 18% of them with a will also had a trust. So a percentage of a percentage, very, very few people. Reality is about 60 to 65% of Americans probably should have a trust. Something in place, or at least have those other documents. Number 1 reason people don't have a proper estate plan. They just don't get around to it. And now I have a confession. I placed an order for these cool little things we're supposed to pass out right now. They were just rubber jar openers, it's peeled garlic, you know, whatever, like a little rubber. And they just said, to it. We were gonna pass you all out to it and tell you now you've got around to it. So if you want around to it, I will mail you one. All you gotta do is write your address on the card that is in your thing, and I will mail you in the mail to your physical address. Anybody like to go check the mail anymore? Everybody know it's junk mail and bills, right? I'll mail you something that'll be fun to go check. So if you do believe that you would benefit from a conversation about your estate plan, you want to really sit down, go over that. Maybe you have questions that you're not comfortable asking in a group. There's a little card in there, a little quarter sheet card. Fill that out. Make sure Miss Tanya has that before you leave here. And we will set up an appointment with her and myself and you to go over your situation personally and talk about it. You know, whether or not it's right for you, whether or not, you know, maybe some other documents or other things that aren't going to be as in depth as a trust might be right for you. But help you to feel comfortable with your overall financial picture and your future. So that's it. Thank you all for coming. Thank you all for letting me practice on you tonight. I hope I gave you a little bit of information that maybe you weren't aware of before we started. And if you have any questions, please feel free to she's got my number, she knows how to reach me. We can set up a private meeting and make sure we get those answered.
This is what I'm talking about. We had 3 ladies leave because her husband, Debbie's husband, was just in a car accident.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so please keep them
Oh,
in prayer.
really?
She said her husband was okay, but they had to leave to make sure everything was okay. So it's just stuff that happens. So we just need to make sure that we got everything in place. We're planning, we're starting early. We don't want to wait until something happens to try to do it, because sometimes it's just too late then. So let's get our finances and our business and our house in order. Again for coming out. I appreciate everybody that can stay. A lot of people had to leave because they leave by 7 o'clock. That's what time our regular class is over. But thank you again, Tanya. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you for hosting this.
Definitely.
And now I can't say that I don't know what your dance classes are.
All right, exactly. You got a good feel tonight. All right. We can leave them here because I'm going to come in. Oh, okay. I don't need it. I have it. Yeah, I'm ready for it. Got everything together.